Hey guys, okay, so today I've got Marianne Taylor from The House Detective with me. Now, bit of sort of background context as to how this situation came to be. Earlier this year, I went down the rabbit hole of trying to build my knowledge on how to date pre-1947 and pre-1911 houses. And through that process, and we've joked about this quite a bit, you just started haunting me. Like it felt like every single resource I looked at, whether it was a Facebook page, a website, a heritage expert, no matter which direction I looked, there was you and your name. And I was like, okay, I feel like the universe is telling me something here. We need to meet. We need to get to know each other. So since then, we've caught up quite a few times and I've involved you in a couple of our jobs. And I thought, okay, let's get you behind the camera and let's share some of that knowledge, just tap into it ever so slightly with some of our viewers. So the topic that I wanted to tap into today was relocator houses, because you helped us in particular on a job in West End on this exact topic. To set the scene, I'll probably start off by saying, why on earth do you care about relocator houses? Well,
good question.
Good question. If you're in the traditional building character overlay, and if the house was built prior to 1947, then it is protected. Now, you need to note that those rules do not reference the construction date on that site. They reference the construction date full stop. So therefore, the house could have been built prior to 1947 on a different site, relocated to this site, and it's still protected. But it's obviously not necessarily going to show up in the 1946 aerial photo and all of that sort of stuff. So, to start with, I was hoping that we could possibly talk to the whole relocator topic, because I think there's a massive misconception out there. People look at modern houses, they're obviously made typically of masonry, brick, all those sort of materials, so you don't assume or don't ever consider the fact that they could be relocated. But back in the day, it was very, very common for that to happen.
Absolutely.
So talk to the fact that why did they do it, how did they do it, all of that sort of stuff.
Sure. Well, it was ever since the early days in settlement, European settlement in Australia, the houses were built generally to be relocated. So the early examples are things like mining towns, where they would travel to wherever the gold was, or along railway lines as well. They would move their houses along to wherever the railway terminus was. So as railway lines were extended, they'd pick up and move their shops or their houses along the line as well. So it's sort of extended from that, I guess, but it also comes down to the fact that the types of houses, so the early Queensland houses, the timber and tins, they just lend themselves to relocation really easily because they're such a set structure in themselves and they're so solid they can be moved quite easily.
And I think that's a massive misconception out there. People look at tin and timber houses and go, oh, they're so flimsy and lightweight.
No way. They are some of the best constructed houses you will find out of timber. They are all, they're all really well jointed together, so they're a very rigid structure, which lends himself to relocation, but it also, as another aside, you have to be careful where you put holes in them for new doors and stuff, because it actually weakens it. But that's a whole other
different
blog
topic.
Post. Yes,
we'll do a different video on that one.
But yeah, with relocations, it's I think it's something it's probably fairly unique to Queensland as well, I think, because of the style of the houses. And I mean, in more recent years, it's obviously as development pressures increase, it's very easy to move houses, and also of course the developers can make money out of selling them because we all love these beautiful old houses.
And another point that I've previously picked up on in our conversations is the fact that back in the day materials were so expensive and so valuable, because a lot of the time you actually had to ship them all the way from Europe or England and all that sort of stuff.
Right, yeah.
Whereas these days we obviously just pop to Bunnings and just get materials.
Absolutely.
So it was a totally different world back there. You needed to hold on to those houses.
That's right.
You couldn't just burn them and move on to the next one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And when you're talking about having to import the materials, particularly corrugated iron, but I mean, if you wanted timber and you're out in the bush, you had to go and cut a tree down and mill it yourself by hand. So yeah, if you've already got a ready built house and you can move that, then that's obviously going to be the best option. And that's true of probably the sort of urban areas as well to some extent, if you could just relocate a house. And I actually know one story where they built a new house and they were going to get charged £5 to build a dunny in the backyard, so they actually moved their timber dunny to their new block of land as well, so they didn't have to pay for it. So yeah, see, it even applies to toilets.
And give me the really, really quick like 2-second summary of how you move a house? Do you literally just chop it in half? Or back then, did they keep it all together and just put it on the back of horses? Like, how?
Yeah, I know. It's mind-boggling, isn't it? So it depends on the size of the house, basically. But if it's a big house, they would, and they still do this, literally cut it right down the middle with a chainsaw or a saw and split it up and put it on the back of a truck. I've seen them being floated down the Brisbane River. There's a great photo of a big house being floated down the Brisbane River to its new landing place. Being pulled on trucks hauled by bullocks and cows and horses. It was basically however they could. Sometimes you can just put them on, even I've seen them move where they were just sitting on logs and they just rolled the logs and one would come out the back and they'd move it and put it up the front and just move it along like that.
That feels way too painful.
I know. But like going back to the reasons why you did it, I mean, this was not only saving money and the lack of materials, but I think back then they were just so much more about recycling things where you could and so much less disposable. So it's
a bit sad that today we just live in such a disposable society.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the next question I was going to ask is, it's a really good one. What was it? Oh, no.
I was hoping you'd remember.
That's it. The main question. How do we work? We've talked about this before. How do we work out whether a house is being relocated? Now, obviously, your skill set, you know how to dive deep into the records and get all that nitty-gritty sort of stuff. We don't want that because that's out of the average person's reach. I want you to give us a couple of quick little helpful tips that the average person could jump on to try and identify whether their house is being relocated.
Sure. So I would say the first thing to look at is the style of the house. If it's really different to all the others in the street, maybe that's probably the first, suggestion there, because it would probably come from a different era.
Actually, that works really well into a post I did the other day where I said, if you look up, like we're trying to decode a house and work out what was pre-47, what was post-47, and we actually had 3 or 4 houses in a row that were the exact same style. Right. So you go from one house to the next and just compare the little changes. So that makes sense. Right. If you're in a street like that where they're all a certain style and there's this one house that's different.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the next thing I would say is, if you do suspect it's been relocated, is to talk to any old neighbours or people who've been in the area for a long time, because they will probably remember when it happened. It really probably reached its peak in the 80s, I think, before the current period when houses were being relocated a lot, and so that'll be in people's recent memories. They might have heard stories for their grandparents as well if it was moved before that. So talk to people in your street. Nice way to meet your neighbours as well. And then the other thing to look at is the physical house itself. So like I said, sometimes they were just cut straight down the middle, or parts were cut off and then put back together. They tended not to do that neatly, so you can generally find a straight line through the floorboards or something like that, unless it's been very well done. And the other thing I would probably recommend is, if it's a high set, going underneath and having a look at if you can see where there's been beams cut or new ones added in or things like that. Another good thing to look for, although it's not combined with other evidence, I guess, it's not a standalone thing, is to look if it's been re-stumped. So if it's a really old house but it's on concrete or steel stumps, then it's probably another hint that maybe it's being relocated, although it's common to re-stump as well. But combined with other evidence, that can be a bit of a thing to look for as well.
And that's what I always say to people when it comes to dating a house or trying to decode a house. It's never one thing that's going to crack the mystery for you. It's a combination of different things that all come together.
That's why I make the big bucks. It's so time consuming and no one wants to do it because it's so boring.
Okay, so that leads perfectly into the next question. How can people reach out to you, connect with you, see what you do, all of that sort of stuff?
Absolutely. So I've got a website, which is housedetective.com.au. All my details are on there. You can read some of my previous cases. You can have a look at what I do and how much I cost. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. I've just started a YouTube channel as well, which is a bit exciting. So I'm just the House Detective on all of those. You'll be able to find me, hopefully.
Which I've always said is the best name ever, because it says exactly what you do.
It's exactly what I do. I investigate houses, and follow leads and go down rabbit holes. So
nice.
And I'm always happy to help if you have any questions as well about researching your house. So
awesome. I'd highly recommend you jump on Stalker through Instagram, Facebook. That's what I did the first time. Went down that deep hole.
I promise I won't haunt you all like I did Peter.
Okay, any last words you want to say before we finish up?
No, just it's can be really rewarding researching your own house as well. So if you do have the time, it's worth trying to have a look into. But like I said, I'm always happy to help if you do need some assistance, because it's not difficult, but it is very complicated and time consuming, and you really need to know where to go to find the information. So
there's a treasure trove of information out there if you know where to go and how to actually decode it. That's the hardest part, is understanding
lots of lateral thinking. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that covers off everything we wanted to talk about. As I always say, until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got three. Number one, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site-specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number two, Brisbane Town Planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not Council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not Council. Number three, what was my number three? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all.